right here, right now. Wrath and Ruin out today. He brings you the sword and the cross. By rights of might, I crown myself the nobility of thy sword. Ladies and gentlemen, John Kevill, fanfare, and the banger.
Hello. What's up, Chris? Good to see you. Yeah.
Long time no see, eh?
Yeah, last night you brought the sword so I could bring the sword on stage and say, I bring the sword.
And the people loved
It was great, man. I need to get that as a prop now. It's settled. Everyone in the band was like, yes, we need to actually have a sword in the trailer now. It's settled. It will be done.
Hell
I
yeah.
can't believe we did. It's so obvious. Thrash metal bands like us aren't usually much for props or those kind of theatrics, but it kind of fits.
You know what? As long as it fits, as long as it's not hokey pokey, goofy foam swords or anything or keyboards.
Because of course not. Of course, professionals have standards. I was wondering, I'm like, is this gonna come off like too power metal or cheesy? I was like, no, because we have like vicious riffs going.
Yeah.
So that the context is different for standing there with your sword.
So what was that like being on stage? Because I noticed you kind of like didn't know what to do with the mic for a second, then you put it in the front
I
pocket.
put my mic in the front pocket because I'm not used to like brandishing a sword on stage. It's a rather heavy piece of steel there. As I improve that bit of theatric, I'll get more used to it. It looked cool.
So Wrath and Ruin out today, Napalm Records. We haven't heard anything from the Warbringer boys in a while. What have you been working on the past 5 years? How's your life changed since we last saw each other?
Oh my God. Well, I moved to the middle of the swamp in Florida with my wife. We have a big house there now. It was abandoned for 13 years, which is how someone like me was able to get land and property and stuff. First summer was wild. I was just a walking mosquito bite pretty much.
Yep.
And raked leaves for like weeks on end because the canopy had drenched on this for over a decade. But like, it's gorgeous there, man. I got a lake in the backyard, pile of kayak around and stuff. Kind of like a lot of stuff on the record. If you listen to the record, I'm not so big on city life. I wasn't feeling good about it, and a lot of the being kind of stuck in the pandemic and having like the last record's campaign heavily derailed, and then just like sitting there and nothing to do with myself. Sort of kicked in for songs like Cage of Air and Better World, some of those depressive feelings and stuff. Just because you're in the forest, a better place doesn't fix all like the social problems I'm trying to talk about on the record, but it gives you a little distance from it mentally.
Absolutely. So there was a lot of morose with songs like A Better World. Now, we can't fix the world around us, but if you, John Kevill, had a better world tomorrow, what would that look like?
Probably begin with executing the major CEOs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get rid of the land war.
I'm not even kidding. I shed no tears. I mean, like, honestly, you want to fix the problem the quickest you can, start there. And then the next bunch that take their position, them too. And after that, they'll probably get the message. And then we can start building a society for human standard of living and not for maximal extraction.
Do you ever feel worn down as you're on the road? Because you've been doing this for 20 years now. Do you feel like you're being extracted of your worth?
Oh, yeah. No, constantly. I mean, there's been no shortage of musicians who have talked about this and everything. Every musician's the last in line to get paid and stuff. I often feel like Warbringer in its career path, just everything that's happened with all the lineup changes and weapons coming out right in the pandemic and just everything has had to kind of work twice as hard for half as much. But fine, we'll fucking do it.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Okay, if that's a raw deal, it's the deal we got, we'll do it, So I'm trying to sort of reinvigorate myself because I've had like a whole struggle keeping myself stoked about this because like it's a raw deal. Sometimes you go work your ass off and you're like, well, that was for charity basically. But no, it's for the cause, man. It's for the cause, and I do believe in that cause. I did when I was young and I still do now that I'm semi-old. We're the oldest new band in the world, right? Yeah.
So something I really loved about Wrath and Ruin compared to Weapons of Tomorrow, I felt there was a lot bigger of a push to have more bass lines on there. There was a lot more, I felt that Chase was able to sink in his teeth a lot more, especially with the songs like Neuromancer. Did you guys go in with that intention with this record to give him a bit more leeway?
So Carlos was the main arranger there, and he was writing songs to try to have like, understandable structures and to fit the vocal theme, which he did a wonderful job with. And that's what we were doing on Weapons too. So one of the things when I critique Weapons, which one should do if you're trying to be better and stuff, I think Chase Bryant was underutilized. The only track where he really, really gets like a full standout thing is Heart of Darkness, where I like coached him on here's what we gotta do. The bass has to be like you're going down the dark river and like showed him movies and everything. Like I'm like, paint me that picture, dude. I get all like that when we're writing songs. So this record, I was definitely like in there going like, hey, a lot of the riff arrangements here aren't as like chaotic as some other stuff we do. There's nothing structured like a Severed Reality where it's just like riffs flying at you from all directions. It's more like linear, I would say, for the most part, with some twists. So I'm like, Chase, you gotta like add to that. So actually there's like, in a lot of the record, the bass does like go off script a bit and is doing all kinds of stuff. And Mark Lewis, the producer, was up to bring it up in the mix, which is necessary because it doesn't matter what you're doing if you can't hear it. No, I really think Chase Bryant's a fantastic player and performer. And I'm happy that like that came through to you as a listener, because I was definitely like, yes, I want people to know how fucking good our bassist is and how much that like adds to the sound. It's, you know, and you need that bass like under the riffs, that growly clank tone and everything, and it adds a ton, dude.
So you were talking to Belgian Jasper not too long ago, and you mentioned Mark Lewis's influence on you for this record, how we told you to get more pissed off after a good take.
Specifically, he'd be like, that was good, but I want you to be more pissed. And he would say it like that every time for some reason. So I was like, okay, dude, I'll be more pissed.
How do you get more pissed? Like, for me, when I'm going to a hockey game, if I want to get angry, like, I'll just rip out a nose hair. Like, how do you get pissed off real quick?
Okay, so I think like on a 1 to 10 of pissedness, I'm like a 4.5 baseline. Like, I'm fucking pissed right now, actually, like just generally. But
There was no cream in your coffee, goddamn, right?
that's not even it, dude. That's not even it. No, just, you know, I could go into like Agent Smith's speech from The Matrix or something. Like, oh, the sweat, the stink of it all, you know. I get like that, man. So, I don't know, dude. I just go back and do the same thing and try to be like snarlier and growlier and try to give Mark what he wants. And honestly, dude, I don't want a producer who's going to like take the first take. Even if the first take's good, I want the dude to be like, okay, what do you got? Let's squeeze the juice out of this dude. So just him doing that really helped. I do think it does sound more pissed.
It does. I'd agree.
Yeah, roadier delivery, and I think the vocal production is probably the best we've had. I was really happy with the way I sounded on there, with the way the band sounded. I think the production is one of the real strengths on this one.
So when are you going to write your own book and do some spoken word?
That's a hell of a project. I've done random bits of spoken
Like
word.
Lord of the Rings on your YouTube channel.
But yeah, Lord of the Rings, and I did like the speech from Thulsa Doom and Conan. There's bits of it on Warbringer records, mostly Guns Fell Silent intro. That's me. I'm the guy on Cage of Air who's like, let me try to do the voice. There has never been such a thing as a free country. You know, no, I love those voices. And then Adam and Noelle, my wife, were the other two. So Adam goes like, we value our human resources. And my wife Noelle goes, I don't know, doctor. I just feel so empty.
That had a little bit of a one element coming into that as a fan. It really brought me back to like 1989 Metallica, where you got the first time they ever played a music video with one, that very wake up in a hospital kind of vibe.
I was thinking like those muttering voices on Pink Floyd albums. And I thought that was cool because like kind of before you even know anything about the song other than like what it's called, or maybe not even that, you get a vibe for what it's about, I think. So I like stuff that can kind of like put a picture in your head and just trying to make every song different, because a lot of people, I think, discredit the thrash metal genre as being like very single-mindedly about like mosh riffs and whatever, which it is, and don't change. But at the same time, like there's so much breadth in it within individual bands' albums, and then between different bands. You know, you have like the punky crossover end on one, and you have like tech thrash on the other.
You're sharing a lot of borders with a lot of different genres.
And you can kind of lean into each of them on different songs. And I think that a lot of people who kind of write off the thrash genre as some like relic or something really aren't looking at the actual like sonic versatility has, because it bridges between like every other metal style there is. And I don't think there's really another sound that's like positioned to be able to do that quite the same way.
So, Sword and the Cross.
Yes.
So, this is the first time we talked about the Crusades on a Warbringer album.
So specifically, it's not so much the Crusades. Okay, so when I was in old history class, I had a wonderful teacher, Professor Clementine Oliver, who kind of dressed like Miss Frizzle from the Magic School Bus.
I remember that.
She was freaking excellent. And she was a medievalist. And she was talking once about the early Middle Ages. So like right after the collapse of Rome, we haven't established the feudal order. She's talking about like, how did that get there? And basically, it's warlords with bands of men riding around and like, hey, peasants, how many heavy cavalry regiments do you have? 0? Oh, it's not going to go well for you. And she gave this thing that stuck in my head, which was, what's the purpose of a castle? Or at least in the early Middle Ages period, where they're like establishing what would become the feudal order, and and the royal lines. Those had to start somewhere. At the beginning of it, someone with a fucking sword killing people is basically where they start. And she said a castle, you think about it as like this defensive structure, but like it's up on the hill, and it's kind of like a offensive area domination structure, because you can ride out of there with your band of retainers and whatever. You can go and wreck the areas around you, or like extract tribute from them, do whatever you want, rape and pillage and all the awful shit human beings do to each other. And then like, okay, now we ride back to the castle with our spoils. What are you gonna do? You gonna besiege a castle? Didn't think so. That kind of thought of the knights as like this scourge of the land and stuff. And then also they had to like Christianize a lot of Europe by the sword. Charlemagne had this thing, the bloody verdict of Verdun. So by the time we're at the part where I mentioned the crusade marches on, in my little timeline of the song, they've already established the order of the feudal lords in Europe by the time we're at the guitar solos. Yeah. And now they just do the same thing to other lands. Mm-hmm. And, then that eventually spreads across the whole world. And you could argue it even continues into like the colonization of the Americas, where they're doing the same thing there, and perhaps in even more brutal fashion. And the idea of this song was to it's not like about the Crusades or about knights. It's to draw this idea that today we like to think we're this free society of citizens, but we have de facto lords, and you're a fool if you think if you don't see it. I think those de facto lords are actually better at extracting wealth than the feudal ones were, and that there's an act of violence implicit there too. It's kind of like the medieval lord saying like, my power never left, I still own you, and you like to pretend that the world's not this way now. You have this illusion, but you idiot peasant, I'll own you forever, because you don't even realize. So it's more about that. It's more about the perpetuation of power through time and like class power and stuff than it is about the Crusades or whatever. The sword is violence, and the cross is ideological power. And though there's today, instead of the cross, it would be like the myth of
trickle down economics.
Yeah, I'm a super genius entrepreneur, and so I deserve to have the wealth of a small country, while there's however many homeless people on the street right now in Toronto.
I'm just gonna keep holding this. Oh fuck yeah, dude. Of the Canadian Big Four of thrash metal, why are Sacrifice the best band?
I would rank them at the top. So first off, the drum performance on Soldiers of Misfortune is as good as they come. Yes. Those stops, and they're on a dime, and they're just catchy as hell. One of the most criminally underrated thrash records, in my opinion, better than the great majority of output by the Big Four. Like, I would take Soldiers over anything Anthrax released, or probably like anything Megadeth did other than Rust in Peace. Like, I rate that one super high.
Such a good one.
As the World Burns, In Defiance is one of the best like speed burn. It does not have a halftime part at all, and just like keeps the tempo like well up to 200 the whole time, and every little fill and break just catches me. I love that stuff. So that album in particular. Also, I kind of got the high shriek I do from the previous two albums, where Rob Urbanati does this just like tree slicing scream, I guess. I don't know, it sounds like he's got set on fire. And I was
so when you chop lumber, do you do your screams?
No, it's the lumber that's screaming, right? Yeah. Then I would have to rate Razor as a close second. Razor has the advantage in consistency and just has like a longer discography, especially with Sheepdog, but also on the Bob Reed albums. They have this like tough street fighting vibe to them that's kind of unique to them, and I just love that. And they also just like basically thrash you the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of like the Tasmanian Devil.
Okay, so this is a reference to a conversation we were having. The Tasmanian Devil is the most thrash of all cartoon characters because he is a one-man self-contained circle pit, and because he's like actually doing thrash vocals the whole time. It's like, like you could put that over on like Pleasure to Kill or something, and you'd be like, it would work quite well,
You grew up in LA, and then you moved down to Florida.
Yeah.
And, obviously, you have the best interviewer here in Toronto. So why are the Leafs your favorite hockey team?
I don't give a damn about pro sports.
God damn it, John.
Because your stokedness, I hope the Leafs
win the Stanley Cup.
I hope the Leafs win enough that you continue to be stoked.
Yeah, hell yeah.
That's the most I'll give you, Chris. Next one. Next one. On we go. I don't care about pro sports. Ask me about tanks or something,
Okay, when you go on stage, what tank do you identify as?
A Kevill Mark IV.
And what are the advantages of the Kevill Mark IV versus the Mark III?
Well, you know, it has a better cannon and with greater armor penetrating capacities, and you know, it drinks more beers.
I love last night when you pointed the microphone over at the beer can when you opened it.
Oh, I've been doing that. Someone said, yeah, apparently there's a thing, ASMR, that's some heavy metal ASMR. It sets the vibe.
Oh yeah,
You know?
And as promised, I appreciate every single one of your comments on the most recent video for Wrath and Ruin. And I will read some of them and yell them at John. So
Oh, we're gonna yell. He's gonna yell.
this is my turn to yell at you.
You have to actually yell.
David Bless 9004 says, tell him drunk bastard got drunk while listening to this album.
Good for you.
Lunar Blood Reviews. Dude, I've been hyped as all fuck and it delivered everything I wanted and then some. How stoked does that make you feel about your work?
Very stoked. I don't even like know how I could describe the stokedness. It's something that I try to never get used to or take for granted. I'm really just glad anyone listens to us at all, let alone put such high praise on it. You know, I think if one loses sight of that, then you're liable to disappear up your own asshole.
Stephen Barry says, on repeat, LOL, this album is so sick. I bought a shirt yesterday. I bought 5 yesterday. Get on my level, buddy.
What to say? Jesus.
Bill Cowan 5539 says, this album kicks ass. I love it. Devil horns. Mirak says, great album, but the lyrics hit way too hard. Can they hit softer next? I don't know.
No. I
Sorry,
try to
dude.
be grimly serious with the lyrics, and I want it to hurt, basically. We're not going to give you stock material. I'm going to give you the best I got, and if it feels bad to hear, it's because you already felt bad about those topics.
Another fucking banger. Hoping for more fucking thrash from these guys forever. Gonna see them. They forgot the I. Yeah. There's just an Gonna see them.
I'm going to see him. I'm going to see him tomorrow.
And some dude, okay, I made a mistake. When I was doing the history of Warbringer, I forgot about Empire's Collapse. This one dude commented John Kevill should kick his ass for forgetting Empire's Collapse, so.
Don't forget Empire's Collapse. It's an interesting record.
This is Chris Thrash at BangerTV with John Kevill, the sword and the cross. See them on the road.